folks, I'm going to go ahead and dive right into our afternoon of programming. Our next speaker is someone that you all know very well. He is also someone that I've introduced once or twice, and I know he's a fan of short introductions. And so I've got about a 2.5 minute long oratory here that I could give about him, but I'm pretty sure he would tackle me before I got to the end of minute one. And so in the interest of avoiding that, excited to welcome Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack, taking another run at the Ag Secretary position from his time in the Obama administration now to the Biden administration, and excited to welcome him here to the Agri-Pulse Ag and Food Policy Summit. Secretary Vilsack.
Yes, thank you. Well, thanks very, very much. It's good to be here today. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to visit with you folks. I gave a speech recently down in Florida to the pork producers. And at the end of the speech, one of the participants came up and said that my speech was very similar to a study he had read that was produced by Bob Berglund, Secretary of Agriculture, back in the late 70s, early 80s. So I did a little research, and it turns out that he's actually right. Secretary Berglund produced a report in January of 1981 entitled A Time to Choose, a summary report on the structure of agriculture. In this report, he expressed concern about the fact that we were seeing larger and larger farms, which meant fewer and fewer farms and farmers. He expressed concern about the fact that our farming population was aging. He pointed out the role of technology and the importance of it in terms of additional productivity, the impact it is having and was having on farm labor. He talked about concerns of water, particularly in the western part of the United States, and that farmers expressed continued concern about price and income supports, the level of exports, and constraints of the federal budget. And he finally concluded by pointing out the importance of preserving the family farm. And this is what he said, which I thought was interesting, and it frames my comments to you today. And I quote, "As good for farming as the 1977 Farm Act was, it still approached agriculture as if all farmers were alike, had the same problems, received the same benefits from the programs, and should be assisted on the basis of the farm unit production rather than a per-person need. By and large, it failed to recognize any special problems of farmers of different sizes or organization or experience brought about under difficult economic circumstances." I thought about that quote today as I visit with you today, because the report had recommendations on a variety of ways in which he felt we needed to address the differentiation of American agriculture. Talked about land ownership and conservation programs, about the tax and commodity policies, credit and labor, and he outlined some very specific recommendations on research and trade. Now, it's interesting that his concerns were not new to the Department of Agriculture. If you take a look at the report of the Department of Agriculture dated 1863, it was the first report by the Commissioner of Agriculture at the time, Isaac Newton, not the Isaac Newton. He was the first commissioner. He expressed the same concerns in 1863. In fact, he went all the way back in history to express concerns about agriculture and consolidation, and suggested that it was probably the result of and the reason why the Roman Empire declined. So there's a history here. So I bring that history to you today because it sort of dovetails with concerns that I had recently when I saw ERS reports on farm income, which indicated that indeed the last couple of years here in the U.S. we enjoyed record farm income. But then there was a similar ERS study that said at the same time we were enjoying net cash farm income at record levels, nearly 50% of our farm families did not make money. In fact, they lost money. And another nearly 40% of our farm families made some money from their farming operation, but wasn't the majority of the money that they made to support their families. So suggesting that nearly 90% of farm income, or of farmers, either didn't make money or didn't make enough that alone would support their families. So it suggests to me that we still have challenges. And every time we begin to have a conversation about a farm bill, it seems as if this challenge is set aside for yet another generation. Well, I think the time's come for us to recognize and appreciate the challenge we have and the opportunity we have for the first real time, in my view, to really address it. And the reason we have that opportunity is in large part because of the passage of significant legislation in the last couple of years. The American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, and the Inflation Reduction Act. You see, the President understands and appreciates that the strength of this great country is in its middle class. And he feels very strongly about the importance of us strengthening and rebuilding that middle class. And it's not just limited to manufacturing, not just limited to urban areas. It equally comports and connects to the challenges of rural America. The necessity of rebuilding and strengthening a middle class by focusing on providing opportunities for farmers across the board of all sizes. Farms that sold more than $1 million did quite well in those record years. Farms that sold less than $1 million, not so much. So the challenge, I think, for us is as we craft a farm bill, as we talk about policy, as we talk about helping rural America, is what can we do differently than hasn't been done before, either specifically or in quantity? We've talked about conservation before. We've talked about trade before. We've talked about research before. What we haven't talked about as much is the important opportunity and necessity of creating new market opportunities, expanded market opportunities domestically for those small and mid-sized operations. To me, that's the key. You can have support programs, you can have cost share programs, but at the end of the day, the key here is markets. And we focus a great deal on export markets, as well we should. And we've enjoyed, at least from a dollar and cents standpoint, record years in exports. And we're continuing to have a better than expected export year this year. But we need to focus on here at home. And I think we have an enormous opportunity to do that. Let me begin by talking about the important opportunity that the Climate Smart Commodity Initiative that was launched last year creates. The idea that we would create a new value-added component available to all farmers of all sizes that choose to embrace climate smart practices to reduce the greenhouse gas footprint of their operation, to store additional carbon, and to have a market premium provided to them because of that. When we fashioned this program, we listened to farmers and ranchers in the food industry. Pretty clear the message: make it voluntary, provide incentives, create market opportunities, measure, monitor, verify, and report results. And that's how we've structured 141 projects across the entire United States, all 50 states. 141 projects including every commodity group. We expect and anticipate tens of thousands of farmers to participate and millions of acres to be involved. Not only does this opportunity create a chance with the use of CCC funding to help farmers understand how to embrace climate smart practices without financial risk and get the reward of a new premium opportunity in the market, But it also creates the real opportunity that as we measure and quantify and verify these results, that those results will also have value in what are called ecosystem service markets. The ability of those who need environmental results, who can't in their own industry produce those results, allowing American agriculture to help them, help all of us. Tremendous opportunity. 24 of these markets exist today. And I expect and anticipate that with the information we get from the Climate Smart Commodities effort and forestry effort, we're going to learn a lot more about those markets and be able to take full advantage of them. So that adds 2 additional opportunities that don't exist today beyond selling crops and livestock and government programs to help farmers. But it doesn't stop there. A number of programs within the Climate Smart portfolio also include the transition of agricultural waste into something significantly more valuable. As we transition away from an economy that is based primarily on fossil fuel to one that is balanced with a bio-based element, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of opportunities for the conversion of agricultural waste that has perhaps little value, or the value it has may, in some cases and in some parts of the country, be over-applied, creating some challenges with reference to our water quality. Converting that into something, a new chemical, a new fabric, a new fiber, a new material that can be used in our economy. Creating not just opportunity and income for farmers, but also additional manufacturing and processing jobs in rural America. Example, we all know about biofuels. We all know about the transportation fuels that we use and will continue to use for some time. But the reality is the American aviation industry is crying for a low-carbon fuel. They recognize that it's not going to be in the near term that we have batteries small enough to actually transport a plane over an ocean. It's not going to be within the next couple of years that hydrogen-powered planes will be available. So over the next several decades, what will the industry do to comply with reductions that are required if they travel anywhere else in the world? Sustainable aviation fuel made from agriculture and forestry waste. It's a 36 billion gallon industry. It's an industry that will create hundreds of thousands of jobs and a new income source and opportunity. It's one of many. I know this to be a fact because USDA has a bio-preferred program. We encourage federal agencies to begin thinking about buying bio-based products, solvents, lubricants, things of that nature. We have over 130 categories of these products. Not individual products, categories. And within each one of those categories, there are literally numerous products. It's a new opportunity. It's a new way to create market. It's a new way to expand significantly the income capacity and capability of the same farm with the same farmer using the same farming practices. It's important that we do this. It's important that we focus on additional processing capacity, additional competition, additional markets that don't exist and haven't existed for some time. The consolidation of processing in this country has created an efficient system, but not a resilient one. It's created a system where farmers are often forced to take a single price. But we're changing that. With resources under the CCC and under the American Rescue Plan, we're focused on creating more competition in both processing and fertilizer. We're creating, as of today, over 300 new market opportunities. Markets that have existed, processing facilities that have existed but have been restricted to selling only in their individual state where they're located, now able to sell across state lines because they can comply with federal inspection systems. And new processing facilities and expanded processing facilities. 31 projects to date, many, many more to come. And it's not just meat, poultry, and processed eggs. It's going to be what we refer to as competitive food. Processing of non-meat and poultry processing is also going to be expanded this year. And that's part of building a local and regional food system that complements the commercial-sized operations that we have, that complements our ability to continue to produce and sell not just here but around the world. This is not an either-or circumstance. This is an and situation. But we can produce a local and regional food system that gives that farmer the ability to take a portion of their operation and instead of focusing it on a commodity-based market where they take the global price as it is on that particular day and allow them to negotiate directly with a farm, with a school, with a grocery store, a restaurant, any institutional purchaser of food. We're creating the network, the capacity to do that. We took $10 million of American Rescue Plan money and we provided an increase to our Farm to School program. That $10 million has allowed 5,000 schools the opportunity to buy directly from farmers in their community. Think about the power of this. A new market opportunity for that farmer. The opportunity for youngsters in that school system, those 5,000 schools, to enjoy something that was locally produced, to literally know the farmer that produced it, and the synergy, the connection, the collaborative effort that it will take, which will allow that farmer and that school to have a relationship where they each understand that their future is connected. What a terrific opportunity to bring rural America together. So local and regional food systems, bio-based products, opportunities to take full advantage of ecosystem service markets, the ability to have a value-added proposition from climate-smart practices, and the ability to embrace a renewable energy future with historic resources now being provided under the Inflation Reduction Act and the REAP program and the decarbonization efforts with RECs creates a whole new opportunity for conversion of agricultural waste or capturing the wind or solar or hydro. It's a tremendous opportunity for us. So as this Farm Bill is fashioned, yes, we have to talk about all the issues we always talk about. You saw them up there on the screen. We're going to need crop insurance for sure. We're going to need the ALC and PLC programs. We're going to have to take a look at we're going to look at all that. Research, all of that. But we also have the opportunity to essentially send a message, a strong message of support by continuing to authorize and expand the authorization of these programs with the understanding that the resources can come from the IRA and the infrastructure law and the American Rescue Plan. So this is an enormous opportunity for American agriculture. It's an enormous opportunity for us to really accept the challenge that is before us, one that we've talked about apparently since 1862. Now, why is this important? And I'll finish with this. Why is it important beyond the obvious? Why is it important that we expand opportunities for small and mid-sized farming operations? It's to maintain population and to expand population in rural places. Now, why is that important? Well, here's why it's important. Because there's something special that goes on in those rural communities. There's something that happens with young people who grow up in those rural communities. They understand the value of hard work, but they also understand intuitively that if there is something of value that gives something to you, that contributes to your life, that makes your life better or easier, or more fulfilling, or more meaningful, that you have a responsibility to give something back to it. Now, where do they learn that? They learn it from farmers and ranchers and producers who every single day understand that concept with the land. They know the land can't keep producing unless we replenish it, we re-nourish it, we invest in it. So when kids grow up and they see this country of ours, as great as it is, contributes so much to every one of us, the ability to dream big dreams, to go from an orphanage in Pennsylvania to the Secretary of Agriculture position, not once but twice. This is a great country. And it is great because people are willing to give back to it. How do I know that people in rural places give back to it? Well, just one statistic tells it all for me. Our military. Disproportionate numbers of those serve in the military come from those small towns. So if you want to keep the school open and not have to merge with the arch rival down the road, if you want to keep that small business around the center square open with customers, or you want to keep that hospital be able to attract docs, you want to be able to have processing opportunities and manufacturing opportunities return to that small town, do you want to be able to say to your sons and daughters and grandchildren, you know what, you don't have to go anywhere to do something that is impactful, that is making a difference not just to the country but to the world. It's happening right here. And you can be part of the generation that embraces this new opportunity, that expands this opportunity. And in doing so, we can continue to see a thriving rural America continuing to contribute to this great country. It's necessary. It's important. It goes beyond, goes way beyond the conversations we normally have about a farm bill. Happy to have them. But it seems to me that we shouldn't lose this opportunity. Because frankly, I don't know whether 10 years from now or 20 years from now or 30 years from now, a Secretary of Agriculture will be back in this room with many of you, if not most of you, and reading a quote from this speech and saying we still haven't dealt with the challenge. I don't want that to happen. I don't think it has to happen. And I think our country would be better off if it doesn't. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you for those comments, Mr. Secretary. Got a little bit of time for Q&A here, and I see we've got some questions that have been submitted by our audience. Would encourage all of you to continue to do so, but I'm going to take a moderator's prerogative and ask one of my own first. And it's a question that wasn't necessarily addressed during your remarks, but relates to the product of the USA labeling challenge. It's something that you faced in a different form, of course, country of origin labeling during your previous tenure. And in that regard, Mexico and Canada, potentially looking to retain that retaliatory authority, and there have been some whispers, but maybe not official actions on the part of the Canadian and Mexican governments about potential retaliatory action in the event that this product of the USA voluntary label were to move forward. If it were to come to that, is this a regulatory action you're willing to put the brakes on to stop retaliation from happening?
That's not going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen is that there's a significant difference between the decision that was made in WTO on several occasions when I was previously secretary on a mandatory labeling program. This is a voluntary program. That is a significant distinction. Significant distinction. There is no legal reason for anyone to question the capacity of a voluntary label to accurately represent what consumers believe it to mean. We did a survey. We know what consumers in this country think it means. It means everything done with that product was done in the U.S. It was raised in the U.S. It was slaughtered in the U.S. It was processed, it was born, everything about it in the U.S. And in the past, that was not been the case. All that was required was that it be processed. And so I'm very confident that there is no basis for retaliation because this is a voluntary, not a mandatory effort.
Very good. Question submitted from the audience, and I'm going to kind of make it a bit of a two-parter. Recently at the Commodity Classic, you announced some round of investments through the fertilizer production expansion program. Wondering, one, when we could expect potentially more funding announcements from that program, and an additional question, was that a one-year effort, or do you think there should be thoughts on potentially an additional funding round here in 2023?
Well, first of all, we received several hundred applications. In fact, I think we received applications from 47 states. Actually, it might have been over 300 applications. Well over $3 billion of requests. We essentially, in the first round, took a look at 21 applications, and we're in the process of completing the environmental review of those applications. We announced 8 or so at the Commodity Classic. So I think you can expect and anticipate in the course of the next several months additional announcements from that round of 21. Then I think you will see additional investments being proposed sometime late spring, early summer that will get us through the rest of this year. So you're going to continue to see activity in that space, and you'll also see eventually projects that aren't just going to impact the 23 and 24 crop year, but that are a larger scale that could have implications beyond the 24 crop year.
And as for whether or not additional funding might be made available, is this a one-year program, two-year program? Your thoughts?
Well, we're in we've used the CCC. We're taking a look at what other options there may be because obviously the demand is pretty significant and the need is great. And there are a number of different alternatives here. It's not just fertilizer, it's also nutrient substitutes, it's also new technologies that we'd like to see in the marketplace. So there is a tremendous interest here, and I think it's incumbent upon us to see if there are creative ways in which we can meet more of that demand. And so we'll be looking at that, and I would expect and hope that we'd be able to be creative and find a way to produce as many projects as necessary. Goal here, obviously, is for us to be much more self-reliant when it comes to fertilizer supplies.
Another question says that enhancing the domestic markets that you've discussed is wonderful, but the United States agricultural industry dealing with what the questioner terms of trade cheats like India, and wondering if there's the potential for USDA to consider some kind of MAP or FMD like program, but focused instead on domestic marketing of agricultural commodities.
Well, I'm not quite sure I want to make sure I understand the question. I think we have those programs in place. We have local and regional food promotion programs. We've got procurement programs that is encouraging purchasing from local and regional producers. We have the value-added producer grant. There are a number of different ways in which we have existing programs that provide a support for a local and regional food system. We've amplified and expanded on that with the resources from the American Rescue Plan. So that's already exists. It's not about creating new programs there. But I would like to take the question and twist it just a little bit. You know, I think anybody who's worked at USDA and worked in trade understands and appreciates the challenges with India. And that's one of the reasons why the Indo-Pacific framework was established with trade as being one of the pillars, because we do want to break down so many of those SBS issues that have made it more difficult. We're already having some success in terms of breaking down a number of SBS issues in Southeast Asian countries. India continues to be a challenge. I think we have one lever, and that is they meaning the Indians, were concerned about the fact that their preferences have been sort of taken away by statute, and they'd like to see a resumption of providing preferences. And my view about that is that we ought not to be providing any preference until we see some significant changes in their attitude about American products entering their market.
Last question is we're coming up against time here. Submitted by someone who's wondering, as someone who is a youth in agriculture, your advice and your counsel on what they can or should do to get more involved in the industry and to address the issues facing the ag economy.
Well, first of all, I think they need to understand this is an extraordinary time to be a young person because I think there's a level of opportunity that hasn't existed before, as I sort of pointed out in my remarks. I think there's also a tremendous opportunity for agriculture to actually lead this country, not just in terms of climate-smart agriculture, but in terms of showing other industries the capacity to get to a climate-smart future and a net-zero future. I think American agriculture has the opportunity to get there before anybody else, and maybe even before any other industry in the U.S., and so it can provide leadership. I think there are a number of ways in which they can get involved. We've really focused on establishing not just the large-scale opportunities for credit and things of that nature, but we're also focusing on trying to create those same kind of support structures for microloan programs, risk management programs that address small and mid-sized operations. So it's not impossible for somebody young to get started. They might have to get started small. They may have to get started in a local and regional system. But I think there's more opportunity than ever before to actually get into the farming business if they wish to do so. There's more work that we need to do. That's why we've got a beginning farmer program where we're investing with our friends in land-grant universities to try to get the word out. It's why we're also investing in cooperative groups. We now have over 85 groups that are helping us reach out and advise people about the programs that exist at USDA. And I'll just finish with this. I was reading an article today about a number of young people who said that there's no interest on the part of the USDA in urban agriculture. Well, gosh, there actually is. We actually have a program there. We have, beginning to have significant resources behind that program and a real desire to actually incorporate that into the notion of agriculture generally. But they don't know about it. And so it's important for us to figure out creative ways to get the message out about the programs that we do have, because oftentimes it isn't a situation where we don't have the program, it's that people don't know about it. And I think we have work to do, continue to do, to try to see how we can expand significantly the awareness of what goes on at USDA, because there is a lot going on.
And lastly, and most importantly, asking only the important questions, did your March Madness pick survive the first weekend? Is your bracket still intact?
So I do something with my family every year. I basically fund a pool, so I have a conflict of interest. But I will tell you, it's tough. I watched Christy, my wife. She slaved over her brackets. Not good. Meanwhile, my 13-year-old grandson is in very good shape as of today. Now we'll see what happens tonight with the women's, but it's both men and women. They had to pick the Sweet 16 for both. And then they have to pick the Elite Eight, the Final Four, and the champion, and the tiebreaker is the number of points scored in both championship games, because we pay as much attention to the women's program as we do the women's.
Of course, outstanding women's program in Iowa, and why wouldn't you? Yeah.
They're going to have to pick up the pace if they expect to take on South Carolina.
Very good. Well, we appreciate you answering all of the important and even more important questions there at the end. Folks, please join me in thanking Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack. Well, folks, excited now to turn our attentions to the screen. We will be hearing from our next gold sponsor, the folks at CHS.
Out here, you learn that to keep growing, you have to keep changing. Change how crops grow and how farmers grow their business. How grain moves to more markets across the globe. How we care for our land today and tomorrow. CHS and the farmers and ranchers we serve know all about change. Because together, we've changed agriculture. And now we're the largest farmer-owned cooperative in the country. That means farmers own the system they count on, giving them power through collective strength and advantages at every step. From agriculture tools to expansive market opportunities to energy solutions, we're constantly making the connections so farmers can grow what they want, how they want. It all starts on the farm. From fertilizer to feed and everything in between, all decisions matter. That's why our agriculture tools are always evolving, providing farmers with integrated solutions that optimize crops at every stage. Paired with our local expertise, we're arming them with more technology than ever before, leading to smarter decisions, stronger growing seasons, and a more sustainable future. Once farmers harvest those crops, our work continues because our global grain and processing expertise helps pinpoint markets with the most valuable opportunities for their crops. With domestic processing and our vast network across 65 countries, we're moving billions of bushels year-round. Also, farmers can make the most of every crop. Whether you're running a combine, hauling goods, heating your home, or filling up your car, everyone needs energy. So we're developing smarter, more reliable ways to power everyone's needs while embracing versatile energy solutions that will lead us to what's next. Driven today by integrity, safety, inclusion, and cooperative spirit, CHS was created by farmers for farmers to foster relationships and strengthen communities, to better care for our land and shape the future of agriculture. CHS and its farmer owners are always changing because the world needs us to keep growing. So we're always creating connections to empower agriculture. Learn more at chsinc.com.